So there's not going to be any spoilers in this video, but most likely you have heard about the Last of Us Part 2 controversy. It is all over the internet right now. It's everywhere. Like everyone is talking about this game. So I have to say, if you're trying not to be spoiled, it's going to be very, very difficult. And most people who have seen the leaks are not happy as to what's in those leaks. And you know what? I took a look at them. I looked at all of it because I knew it was going to be a big story in the industry, and we'd probably have to talk about it somewhat. And after seeing those leaks, I will say, not a fan, not a big fan of what's in there at all. And I saw that and I said, oof, man. Because I played back through Last of Us, the remastered one on the PS4, I'm going to say like 6 or 7 months ago, because of course Last of Us Part 2 is coming up and they moved the release date around. But I had fairly recently played through it, and still hits pretty good, right? Still hits hard. It's a great game still. But seeing what's in those leaks, I just, oof, man, it is tough, because I looked at that and I said, if I wasn't going to do coverage, would I now still get this game? I don't know. I feel like I would want to, because the gameplay still looks pretty good. It's more or less the direction, the plot, and everything else they're trying to do around this that's, to me, kind of off-putting compared to what they did with the first game. But the big story here now is, of course, everyone's trying to figure out who leaked out what is a devastating amount of information for a game that is heavily focused on its plot. I mean, that's the big deal. That's why you're getting Last of Us Part 2. Before you knew about these details was to see how everything played out, right? Sure, the gameplay, it's like, oh, it looks good there, but you want to see what happens to these characters, and you want to see the story continue. It's been a while. 2013, it was like 7 years ago. Yeah, so that's a long time to kind of be hanging out like, I wonder what's going to happen next, right? So everyone's starting to try to piece together what happened here with the leaks. And we got some new information today about it from Sony. And what's interesting about this is, because of how big of a deal this situation is, there is a lot of rumors going around right now, people trying to piece together what happened. So we come up with some pretty crazy things. The big front runner right now is that there was a rogue Naughty Dog employee who decided that it would be a good idea to put this out there because they were not happy. And I think a lot of that had to do with the previous write-up on Kotaku from Jason Schreier about the amount of crunch at Naughty Dog. Now, crunch, of course, in the game industry has been a big issue, because you get burnout, you get developers who are very talented who end up only working on a couple of games before they're out of the industry because it's just too difficult and too much of a strain on them. So when you hear that Naughty Dog is getting to the point where they are using all kinds of different people that normally wouldn't work on things like animations, like all kind of coming together to try to get this done because they are literally running out of developers, that is kind of a problem. We even had people who were ex-Naughty Dog employees talk about what they saw there, which were people in different departments outside of their department who were working, over 100+ hours per week. It's pretty crazy, right, to get this game done. And I always look at management as an issue for crunch. So that's why it's not very hard to believe that you could have an employee who just was not happy with how the game turned out, or the build up to it, or the work environments, that they would get really frustrated and just start leaking out the game. Like, that's why it's like so believable to a lot of people. Now, there was also something thrown in there about payments, and who really knows about that. And then there was a Reddit post that blew up the other day that talked about how they wanted to leak it out there so they could get the game to get a release date sooner so that people would get bonuses. And to be honest, that post read like someone who was really annoyed at the leaks and wrote up some fan fiction and a little backstory for all of that. But gamesindustry.biz had at least a response from Sony. We can see that here. It says, Sony has confirmed to gamesindustry.biz that it has identified the primary individuals responsible for the leaks earlier this week, saying they were not affiliated with Sony Interactive Entertainment or Naughty Dog, as was rumored. The publisher declined to comment further, saying that the information was currently subject to an ongoing investigation. So, the amount of information in these leaks, specifically when they're going through, because if you've seen the leaks, you know what I'm talking about. There are quite a bit of information on the side, the builds, all this stuff, right? That I'm sure Sony, Naughty Dog, they can kind of piece together exactly when this build is from, and they can probably figure out who had access to it. Especially a game that should be as guarded as Last of Us Part 2 because of its story. They most likely had very limited access, and they use some pretty pretty strict language here that they are not affiliated with Sony or Naughty Dog, and based on what was talked about with crunch and other things, it does sound like they probably leveraged quite a few contractors to get this done. Most likely that is who leaked this out, a contractor. Now, why would they have leaked that out? That's the number one question. I think that's what everyone wants to know is why? What caused this person to start leaking out a ton of details around this game? Was it that they were not happy with the plot, like a lot of people, myself included, are right now? Like, it's not the plot itself. I can see why it's frustrating right now, right? And maybe, but the payment thing comes up again. The problem is we're still left with questions, and it's actually become more interesting and even weirder that it's not as straightforward as an employee just leaked it. No, it was someone else. I also see people wonder if it was a hacker or someone who just managed to get access to it and stole it. I mean, it's possible. That's the thing right now. We're not really hearing exactly who it was. And I will say this, someone's probably going to court over this. Someone's probably getting sued. So one way or the other, we will eventually find out who leaked this thing. Like, there'll be probably court documents and all of this stuff as someone just gets sued to oblivion because they broke an NDA, or worse, they stole it. Like, that's obviously worse. If you go on their servers and access it and steal it, or you have stolen it from Naughty Dog, yeah, that would be a problem as well. So either way, we're going to figure it out. Sony will eventually probably tell us indirectly, or they'll tell a press outlet like Games Industry, or Jason Schreier may be able to uncover more information, as he has said that he is currently looking into it. But it is strange. We'll say that. Very, very weird around this situation. Let me know what you guys think about this down below. I will say there'll probably be spoilers in the comments because you can't go anywhere without there being spoilers. Naughty Dog posts something, Neil Druckmann posts something, and there are spoilers underneath of it. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Honestly, if you're trying to stay spoiler-free until the release date for Last of Us Part 2, all I can say is good luck. Thanks, guys, for watching. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you next time.